Hi, welcome everyone to PopCultX episode 102, Into the Triple Digits. So once again, we are a pop culture YouTube podcast from the perspective of a Gen X average guy kind of perspective.
Average guy.
Average.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Average.
Ordinary. I don't know. So anyway, that's us, and thanks for tuning in. So let's go ahead and get into it. Danny, what have you been up to?
I've been busy watching a lot of shows, and I want to start with one show, and then I'll get into that, and then another reason why I'm wearing this shirt today, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the show I want to talk about is on Netflix, and it's called Beef. It stars Ali Wong and Steven Yeun. I think that's his name, and it's a great show. It really is. It's about two people who are, have their own thing going on, and like one road rage incident kind of like combines their stories, right? And I can feel for Steven Yeun's character and how it's just how, nothing goes right for him, and it's just, him against the world in a way. But the reason I want to talk about it, because there's a big controversy surrounding one of the other actors involved with this show.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure if you're familiar with this controversy or not.
I haven't heard of this. This is new for me, but any kind of controversy, I'm like,
and it's okay. So one of the actors, I think his name is like David Cho, and he plays like Steven Yeun's, whose character name is Danny. He plays Danny's cousin, and so he's like just a small part of the show. But I guess apparently some videos surfaced of him claiming that he raped a woman, and that's the only way now that he can become aroused or something like that. So it was disgusting. He said it was just like a shock comedy or something like that. But there's nothing funny about that. So now there's a whole like boycott beef movement going on. So I guess the question I had for you, and maybe for our audience out there, is at what point does a minor character like that or something ruin the whole show for everyone else, for all the people who've worked hard on it, for all the other actors who are, to what we know, are upstanding, and it's just like, does one bad apple ruin the bunch?
Yeah. I think that when it comes to a small role like that, I haven't seen the show, so I don't know how big of a role he plays. I'm more in the thought of probably like a director, producer, studio holding them accountable versus, well, I shouldn't say holding them accountable, but like holding them accountable in the fact that like I'm not going to watch their product because they're the ones that their pockets are getting fatter by like me watching it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to ruin the whole cast, production crew, and the directors because of some like small guy that has a couple lines on the show. So it depends on how big the role is. If it was the main character, I would say maybe. But if it's some rando like that just has a couple lines, I don't necessarily think that ruins the show for me. But I would have to know like how big of a role we're talking about. How much screen time does he have? It kind of reminds me of that zombie movie where they replaced the comedian with Tig Notaro, and that role wasn't that big. So I guess it depends on how big the controversy is and how big the role is for them to recast. And particularly like, when does the controversy come out? Is it before, where they can actually do something like replace the character and refilm, or is it too late? Is it already in the can and they kind of have to just deal with it?
Yeah, I think, well, his role, I've seen the first 3 or 4 episodes, and I think he's had maybe less than 5 minutes screen time. Right. So it's not major at all. But maybe going in the rest of the season, he is. I don't know yet. But I think a controversy came up after the show was released, because I guess someone dug up, they remembered hearing him on some podcast say these remarks, which I don't think that's funny at all. But I guess to say what you mentioned about the executive producers, now I know Ali Wong and Steven Yeun are both executive producers on the show. So I'm waiting to see if they release some sort of announcement, kind of saying, hey, we've heard about this stuff. We're taking appropriate actions. Maybe if they do have a season 2, it will be recast. That role will be recast. So I don't know. Or if they come out in defense of him, which if they did that, then I would definitely be like, you know what? I don't have to watch it anymore.
Yeah. I to be honest, aside from the controversy, I have enough like traffic rage to not want to have to sit through anything that has to deal with any sort of, you know, traffic. It's like it's too close to home for me for my reality. So I saw the first like what is it like maybe 5 or 10 minutes where Ali Wong that
Yeah,
she's
Ali
like
Wong.
backing up her car and like almost hitting
Hmm.
the main
Hmm.
character, and I was like, that is too close to what I go through on a daily basis for me to be interested to sit through. Like the veins are already like popping in my neck. So I was like, yeah, let me go watch something that's going to be more entertaining to me and less, provoking.
It's a good show though. You should watch it. It really is. I mean, aside from maybe triggering you and whatnot, but it really is. I think it speaks to a lot to the human condition, because
Yeah.
we've all faced moments like that, and I think they capture it so well.
Yeah, I guess there's certain times when I want to face the human condition, and certain times when I just want to be entertained.
Yeah.
And right now, I was kind of in the entertainment part of it. I actually, instead of watching that on Netflix, I tuned into a movie called Chupa, which is short for Chupacabra. And
Terrible
so,
short name.
yeah, that's the well, chupa in Spanish means like sucker, and chupacabras
Yes.
are
Yeah.
like vampire type animals. It was pretty good. It was like entertaining. It is sort of like a little fantasy sci-fi that takes place in the United States, and then the character goes to Mexico where they encounter chupacabras, and then finds this little small chupacabra, and the whole family sort of comes together to help rescue. Christian Slater is in it. Bashir, I forget his first name. I want to say it's like George Bashir. He plays the grandfather.
Mm,
The grandfather is an old lucha libre wrestler. So that's
nice.
like a really cool, funny aspect of it. And it's a good tale. Like I love that it's about a Mexican family and how they come together, and kind of defend this chupacabra from being destroyed by the like evil scientist. So it's pretty good. I would recommend it. It's a good family film for sure.
Also has like the ET aspects, where they're protecting the mythological alien with a creature.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of sort of a throwback to like those 80s movies that like I mean it's not, the most, it's not going to win an Academy Award, but it definitely is entertaining.
Well, it entertains you, so that's good. Didn't make you think or trigger you anyway. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The other movie that I saw that was pretty much just like eye candy was the Super Mario movie. I didn't really go in there with high expectations of I'm going to be overly entertained. Like, what kind of plot could they possibly have for the Super Mario Brothers? But the special effects were good. I mean, there were certain scenes that like it looked super real. It looked like Brooklyn. It looked like New York. And then there's obviously the fantasy element where it's just completely absurd, and pipes that have plants that are coming out or whatever. But again, it was an escape from the reality that is the human condition, the opposite of beef, where you could just go in, get a ton of popcorn, watch a bunch of shiny things on screen, move around, and be entertained. And it did its job.
okay. Okay. So it sounds like human condition is the main theme of this show, of
Yeah, I
this
guess.
episode. Well, speaking of human condition, and the reason why I'm wearing this shirt, and you can get a clue here if I take my glasses off and put them back on. Any hint of what it's going on with that? Probably not.
You're doing your Seth Rogen impersonation.
Well, yes. Besides that, it's besides Seth Rogen. Today is, I guess, when we're recording this episode, it is the Superman's 85th anniversary.
Oh,
So I wore, Super Jew shirt, Seth Rogen inspired. Yes, good catch. But yeah, it's I saw that and I was like, wow, he's been around for 85 years. So the old man is still getting it done, and he's an alien, and he experiences the human condition in a way. It always gets me that a pair of glasses is his disguise, right? And it's just like, how is that even possible that they don't recognize someone with glasses on or off?
Yeah, it's really silly, but again, it's just fun. It's like when you want to be entertained. Um, Superman is definitely iconic show. And so there's respect when it comes to that, and just for the optimism that he has, that he has faced like probably every threat under the universe, and still is optimistic. Still is not a pessimist, and is out there trying to save the lives of human beings, even though we're oftentimes, not the coolest of people. But that's what when I think of Superman, I just think of like pure optimism and being a hero, even though it may not be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I got a email from DC, which was what sparked the interest from me for that, and it had a cool graphic, which I'll show right here, maybe. And it just said it had Superman flying, and behind him it had the word hope. So I thought that was like a perfect for what you were just saying, the optimism, and I think hope is that perfect word for what he brings to the table. Now, my favorite Superman. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask that.
Oh, okay. I read your mind. No, my favorite Superman, probably the first one I remember, which would be Christopher Reeve, Superman the movie. And that's just like, to me, he was the embodiment of Superman, even after in his own personal life, post, his trauma with his accident and whatnot. He was the embodiment of hope and moving forward and willing the body to move on, even if it's as much as it's taken a toll on him. What about you?
I would probably have to say Henry Cavill is my favorite Superman. I think he's the most recent, one of the most recent versions of Superman. There's a couple of TV shows that have come out that have different Supermen. But I think that he's a pretty good representation of the physical representation of Superman.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. The movies, maybe not so much. I think my favorite movies probably are the Christopher Reeve movies, just because of the nostalgia factor of watching them as a kid. The soundtrack, the iconic score for Superman, just takes you right back to childhood.
Yeah, and music can definitely do that, and especially film scores. Like, I think especially John Williams, right, with Superman, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and you just hear just like even the first few notes of like the Superman score, it takes you right back to when you were younger and watching the movie, and you know exactly what's going to happen. And yeah, so music is so powerful for that, and film scores are such a great way of achieving that.
Right.
Which is cool that we're talking about film scores, because in this week's conversation here on PopCultX, we were lucky enough to chat with someone who does now in his career. He does work on film scores. So we sat down with Jaime Morales of Planet Mischief. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and watch that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to PopCultX Little Talks. It's our conversation series where we chat with a wide variety of creative-minded people. Today, we are joined by Jaime Morales, a musician, teacher, film score producer, and everything creative in that realm, which is very exciting to me because I always love interacting with musicians. I think you guys are just so creative to create something out of nothing, and it just blows your mind. So, Jaime, welcome to PopCultX.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So your partner at Planet Mischief, Shannon, kind of just, introduced us here. So I'm thankful for her for doing that. But other than that, I don't really know too much about you and your career there, Jaime. So why don't you go ahead and give us like a rundown of like, who is Jaime Morales? What makes him tick?
How far back do you want me to go?
Well, as far back as you want to take us.
Well, I guess it's relevant if I say that I was born in El Salvador.
Very cool.
And I'm not going to go through my whole history, but let's just say that at a very young age, around 7 or so, back in 1982, I came up here with my family, escaping the Civil War down there and all that.
Okay.
And how I got into music. Well, I mean, I don't come from a family of musicians, although there's a lot of people that, even though they didn't do it professionally, were very musically inclined and artistic people. But anyway, so when I got here, I was introduced to the choir in 4th grade, and
Nice.
that got me started on reading music. And then 6th grade, I picked up a trumpet, 9th grade drums, and then I started. That's basically what took me into the whole, my love affair with music. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Looking back at your youth, can you remember a particular album or CD or cassette tape or whatever it may have been that really got you into music, where you listened to it and thought, man, this is really cool, this is what I want to do?
I mean, honestly, it really goes back to when I was very young, like before I came up here. It's the music that my mom and my dad listened to, my brother and sister as well, which includes disco, all that stuff from back in those days. And I just have fond memories of listening to that kind of stuff. And so it's either Spanish music, classical music, and then some of the English stuff that we were listening to back then, the Bee Gees and, ABBA and groups like that. That's the stuff that I remember. But a specific artist, I'll say this. When I was still in El Salvador, my parents always listened to, I don't know if you know who Pedro Infante is. He's a Mexican singer. He was. And that man's voice was in my household all the time. So I remember when I was little, my dad and my brother would play guitar and they would have me sing. That's really what introduced me to. So I would say it was a combination of Pedro Infante and a young singer at the time. His name was Pedro Fernandez, Pedrito Fernandez. He was a little kid. And like every little kid, my age at that time, all their parents wanted them to be just like that kid. So we would all be singing those songs. They'd be playing, I'd be singing. But yeah, I would say that it was those two that really, I really ended up enjoying singing along, to my brother and my father playing guitar. And but it was their music. So, but once I got here, I would say, I mean, look, I was introduced to classical music at an early age, but I would say in 6th grade, I joined the orchestra in my middle school as a trumpet player.
Nice.
And that really is what sparked my, my desire to want to become a professional musician at some point in my career. I didn't know exactly what, but I know I wanted to play. Actually, I wanted to play French horn. I didn't want to play trumpet. But because I've always loved the sound of the French horn, but there weren't any more French horns available, so I ended up playing trumpet, and I love it because it's an instrument that really took me different places, and then once I got to high school, I'll say that's when I really got into the harder stuff, like metal and bands. So obviously bands like Iron Maiden and Metallica were my biggest influences. And on the other side, I would say my friends still make fun of me for this, but I was a big fan of Yanni at a very early age. So that's where I keep my classical side, and guys like Harry Connick Jr., Sinatra and that stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question, and I'm just
you did.
In my memory bank here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's cool. I mean, so listening to then during high school, and you found heavy metal, right? Mm-hmm. So that was like your source, I'm sure, of just expressing your feelings, right? So I mean, that's how I see heavy metal. How have you used that as an influence for what you've created later on in your life, as within Planet Mischief and all the bands that you've now joined and also formed?
Well, the first band that I started was in 9th grade. with one of my closest friends. He's still my friend now. To this day, we still work together on stuff. But he doesn't do music full time. But he's still he's an excellent guitar player and guitar. He writes really great. But anyway, I'll go back to what your question was. Heavy metal was, well, my first band was a heavy metal band, and that band was with this person. His name is Frank Lima. He's like I said, still my friend, and someone that I still work with. And the music that we wrote was very aggressive. It was melodic, very melodic, and they tended to be songs that were, in the longer range. So we, usually 9 to 10 minutes long, 11 minutes long, which is not, something that you're going to hear on the radio very often. So a lot of music, a lot of musicality, and heavy metal was definitely the place I started. Because I also played trumpet. I also ended up playing a lot of Latin bands and jazz bands and stuff like that. So, but yeah, definitely the first thing I did was start a heavy metal band. We're trying to be the next Metallica,
You played the drums, is that correct?
Yes, that's my primary instrument.
So how, in 11-minute songs, how did your arms hold up? I mean, my goodness, I think just imagine playing drums for like 3 minutes is exhausting to me.
Well, I was 14 at the time.
There you go.
That didn't bother me. So,
the youth, right?
And a properly trained drummer will tell you, technique, man, technique.
Okay.
I am not a properly trained drummer. So I caveman to everything. So I definitely had to have good cardio in order to be able to play that kind of stuff. Trust me, I try to play that stuff now, and I I do it. It's just not as easy as it was when I was 14, 13 years old.
Yeah. I think of Dave Grohl, and in his book he wrote about how he used to just pound on everything, and because that's how he learned. He taught himself with pillows. So right. I mean, is that how something like what you said, you just used to go for it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, this is before coming up here. Yeah, I didn't know I wanted to be a drummer, but like I said, my brother and my father would play guitar and I would sing. But sometimes I just listened to music, and like Dave Grohl, actually, I was listening to disco. So he actually comes out and says his favorite drummers are disco drummers, funk and disco drummers, right? They influenced his playing, and I'm not going to say that they influenced my playing, but that's the kind of stuff that I was playing to. Because the other stuff, the Spanish music didn't really have drum parts. I mean, they did, but not stuff that I wanted to play.
Right.
Now the disco stuff was more upbeat, and it made you want to move and stuff. So yeah, I would definitely sit there with pillows set up or pots and pans, like everybody says. So I did that for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did I guess how now fast forward a little bit, you created this Planet Mischief, right? Which I know a little bit about, but maybe you can explain a bit to our audience. What is Planet Mischief all about? I know it's a music production company, but so can you give us a little more details about it?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you how it started. With Frank, my friend Frank, we started. I ended up starting a hip hop band, and I met this guy. He's another really good friend of mine. His name is Fernando. And he's a rapper, and he was trying to, find a band to go and perform live with. He didn't want to do the traditional DJ thing, and a rapper thing. So I saw his ad on Craigslist, and I think it was Craigslist. That was in the early 2000s. I think
depends what era it was. Yeah,
it might have been the recycler or something like that. But I saw the ad, and I remember, we got in touch, and I ended up writing out all the parts for the music that he was going to perform to. He already had like 5 or 6 songs, and basically I took what he already had and I orchestrated it so I can give the guitar player his parts and bass player their parts, and anything that we weren't playing was being played with a sequencer. So anyway, the loops that I created and the music that I created that went onto the sequencer when we were performing live were the beginning of Planet Mischief. What happened there was when that band broke up, I had all these loops, And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna put some more loops together, and I put a little compilation of loops, and I started selling them on eBay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then the name Planet Mischief. That's I don't remember exactly how I came up with the name, but it has a lot to do with the mischief part. Is really the way, especially the way we see it now, is like the mischief is that. See if it makes sense the way I'm going to put it. You know how everyone is doing what they consider to be like the bad boy rock and roll thing. You know, it's like we're doing things differently, and not to say that we're like straight edge or anything like that, but we're trying to take a different approach when it comes to professionalism in music. And you know, I always use an example how you talk to Lionel Messi. You know, I don't know if you know Lionel Messi is. Okay, right. If you talk to those guys, you never hear about them, or Tom Brady in American football or whatever. That they have these standards that they have to maintain.
Yeah.
You know, in order to be able to be successful in what they do. And if you look, you know, in different activities, sports or whatever, people at the top of their game, they're not, you know, abusing substances and doing all sorts of stuff that you know, the rock life dictates that you should, right? So, you know, my thing has always been to say, well, maybe we had that same approach, you know, it would be different. So when I've brought this up to other people, especially people who are really hardcore into the whole, you know, lifestyle thing, they kind of like, oh, whatever, man, what are you talking about? You're crazy. And to me, that's like the mischievous side of it, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I got you.
A lot, so.
No, it's fine. But, I got you. So it's like the anti Motley Crue type of feeling to it, right? So you're,
and not to say that I don't like those guys. I mean, I do. You know, I grew up with that stuff, but you know, I figure I need all the help I can get, so I can't really do the stuff that they did. You know, if I want to be on top of my game, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And like I said, I see professional athletes, and they're not doing that stuff, and. You know, while they're on top of their game, they don't do it. David Beckham was one of those guys. There's a documentary where he talks about how he, you know, throughout his whole career, he wasn't able to and was not able to enjoy, you know, going out and partying with his friends because, you know, he would suffer the consequences. Yeah, the image and his performance and all that. And in the documentary, he's retired and he's talking about how he's drinking a pint of Guinness, and he's like, "This is the first pint of beer that I've had, you know, in my whole career. I've drank before, but this is the first time I've gotten to enjoy one in a very long time because now I'm retired and no one's here to tell me that I can't have it." So that, you know, that inspires my point of view on those things.
That's cool.
And then to get back to the loop thing, that's what started Planet Mischief. It started off with a library of loops that I was selling on eBay. I made a second volume. And then after that, I just kind of kept the name around until I met Shannon. The name was still around. Well, actually, when she and I met, we didn't work on music right away. But it was 2017, 2016 when we reconnected and we started working together.
Okay.
And, you know, I was like, I've always had this name, you know, I have the website, I have the URL for it, and let's go. And she loved the name as well. So, you know, that's what it's become now. It's just more of a full-on music production company, which includes film scoring and things like that. You know, writing for TV, writing for film, writing for all media, really. Yeah. There's another side to it as well, which is the live performance side, but that's kind of taking a back seat because of, you know, working with people like you've met Eric.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, when this stuff comes up, it's like, wow, I mean, we got to put our full into it. So.
Was that transition easy for you with your classical music background to go from, you know, rock and roll to being a film scorer? I mean, I imagine it must have been a little different, but also at the same time, you're like, oh yeah, this is what I love about classical music because I can put the emotion into it with just no words needed.
Well, I would say the only thing that would have been difficult as far as transition goes is learning how to use the tools. For instance, we've been writing music, which is, sometimes it's electronic, sometimes it's electronic, fusion, which includes classical elements, a string orchestra or just a piano or whatever. But now with film scoring, we have to learn how to work with that side, the video side, So there's tools. That's probably the only thing that's been really difficult. But as far as the writing goes, I mean, especially, I can't really speak for Shannon. I know she has her own story,
like method or something.
Yeah, but no, and I mean, as far as the influences go, like I was a kid and I remember like Bill Conti, and composers like Ennio Morricone, as a kid, recognizing that they were doing this thing behind moving pictures, and it added so much to the film. As a kid, I didn't know there was such a thing as a film score, but the older I got, the more I got into music, the more I realized, hey, that's something that I would really love to do. And it was really Danny Elfman who, that's where it clicked for me. I was like, wow, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to be a film composer. At some point in my life, I would like to be a film composer.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, I guess I lost my train of thought when you said Danny Elfman. Is there like a particular Danny Elfman score that really is like stands out to you that's like your favorite?
I mean, the first thing I heard by him was the Batman film score, the original Batman with Jack Nicholson. Well, the original for my era.
For us, too.
You guys as well. So I would say that, but I mean, the Beetlejuice soundtrack, that was a great one. Edward Scissorhands, that was great. And then obviously The Nightmare Before Christmas was like, the ultimate for me. But yeah, I think definitely the first Batman, that score. The second score was pretty much the same thing, but they just added a few new things, that just to fit in Danny DeVito, I guess. But and then after that, it wasn't Elfman and Tim Burton anymore. So that kind of ended there. But like I said, Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice, great scores.
You mean it wasn't The Simpsons?
No, and you know what? I remember a friend told me, "Hey, you like Danny Elfman? Did you know that he scored the music for the Simpsons?" And I'm like, I looked up. Back in those days, we didn't have all the search engines. I mean, we did, but it took forever to find out. And I found out about I believe his first work as a film score or as a scorer was a show called Family Dog, and I didn't know anything about that show, and I actually started looking it up, and I should probably do that now because I'm sure it's all over the internet now, but back then it wasn't, and I always wanted to hear that, and I did hear the music, and it sounded kind of like The Simpsons. Okay. So I saw that was the beginning of his career, I guess. But yeah, The Simpsons, I know it's I don't know if he scores the whole thing, but I know that it's definitely the theme song
intro. Yeah, the theme song.
Intro, so, but yeah, that and like I said, Nightmare Before Christmas, and I've pretty much loved all his scores. Even the Men in Black scores, man, those are great. The main theme, the theme song from Men in Black is great.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
that has those elements of traditional classical score, and it has like synthesizers and things like that, which is what Hans Zimmer does nowadays. But and that's another great guy, by the way.
Yeah. Is there a particular genre of film that really inspires you that you want to maybe be involved more with? And for example, when I think of film scores, I think of like horror movie film scores, like Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are the film scores that like I really think of.
Yeah.
Is there anything that like you're particularly inspired by when it comes to film?
Inspired by, I mean, aside from Danny Elfman, I would say the Ennio Morricone stuff, all the spaghetti westerns. And it's funny you mentioned, I believe you did say Friday the 13th, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Friday the 13th, I remember seeing the third one, And I'm not a big slasher movie guy. I do like them, but I'm not like, I have friends who are like obsessed with them. But I remember seeing that, and I don't know if the song plays at the beginning of the movie, but it definitely plays in the credits. But it's kind of, it has this upbeat kind of disco feel to it. I don't know if you guys look it up, like you'll know what I'm talking about. But every time I bring that song up, people have told me, it's like, how do you even know about that song? It's it's not even an important song, but it's so catchy, and it's a song that's always stayed in my head. When I started experimenting writing electronic music, I wanted to create something that sounded like that. And I wish I had access to that right now, and I will show you what I'm talking about. But that made me, it inspired me to write some electronic stuff, which it's interesting because it's not film scoring, but we do use electronic stuff in film scoring. So, but yeah, Friday the 13th, I would say it's that specific song at the end when the credits are rolling of the third one, Friday the 13th, part 3.
I'll have to look that up. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Did you say something, Gabe? I think I talked the same time as you did.
No, you're good.
Okay. Well, I have one last question for you. So when I picture people doing film score, and I guess it's just how it's portrayed in like movies and film, I picture like a musician sitting at their piano and they see the big screen with the film playing on it, and then they see the action going on in there, and they're just like, feeling the mood and creating it more with the music. Is that accurate? Is that how you do it? Is that how it rolls for you?
In huge budget films, yes. The composer will sit there with his giant screens. He's got like sympathy markers and everything, telling him exactly when he should be putting stuff down. I don't know if those guys do the pen and paper thing anymore, because I'm sure in the old days he would sit at the piano and be like, okay, this works perfect, C sharp minor, blah blah blah. He's writing it all out. The way we do it is we have a monitor in front of us, and we have a smaller window. Actually, with Shannon's setup, we do have multiple monitors. So one of the monitors will have the video, the footage, and we're syncing it to audio. So it's
so similar. Yeah,
similar. We just don't have the actual piano there and pen and paper. But yeah, we're taking advantage of modern technology to do
right on.
To do. So yeah, but yeah, it's kind of like that. Maybe one day we'll have the Hans Zimmer thing.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Get a full 50-piece orchestra in there and just creating magic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they still do that. I know that. We obviously we can't go and hire a 50-piece orchestra. We can't go and get London Phil to record something for us. But the virtual instruments that are out now are so good. It's very realistic sounding instruments, and if you know what you're doing, you can make just about anything on a computer nowadays. So but it's interesting.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I like to ask all our guests. We are a pop culture podcast and YouTube show. So, what are you currently watching, currently listening to, currently reading that maybe you can share with our audience?
Currently watching. My son got me into The Good Place. A lot of people have been telling me you got to watch it. So my son and I
shirt balls. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We actually, right before I came on here, I was downstairs watching. We do 2 episodes every Tuesday. Cool. And everyone's like, "Well, how can you just watch 2? It's such a great show. You have to binge watch this whole thing." So that's I'm watching that. And I tend to watch a lot of military stuff. Like I just finished watching The Pacific and Band of Brothers again. I watched those a few times, and Generation Kill. Let's see, what am I listening to right now? And I blame Shannon for this. I've been listening to a lot of Opeth and Metallica because of the new album that just came out. So. And as far as reading goes, I went back to a book I love, and I think either my wife or Shannon, one of them, I should remember who gave it to me, but give me, Where did I put? Oh, it's downstairs. It's actually a book on General Mattis, United States Marine Corps General Mattis. He was retired. The book is called. Sorry.
Mad Dog Mattis, right?
Mad Dog Mattis. Well, Chaos, but yeah, I was reading his book and I started reading it again. So that's what I'm reading right now.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, I mean, it's great for you to join us. Thank you so much. It's great getting to learn a little bit more about you. I look forward to seeing what you guys create for, like you mentioned, Eric Shapiro's movie Tightser coming up. So I'm looking forward to hearing the score that you guys create for that. I know this
we're looking forward to that. On. There's a couple of projects with him, so it should be interesting. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to talk about yet, but but you obviously know about Tightser, so
yeah,
we'll go with that one.
We'll go with that one because that's the one Eric told us about.
Exactly.
So we'll go with that.
But yeah, that's thanks so much for having me, man. This was fun.
Thanks again, Jaime, for spending some time with us tonight or today, or in the internet. It doesn't matter what time or day it is. But thanks again for spending some time with us to chat about your career at Planet Mischief. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you once again.
Now, one last question for you. And once I remember what I was going to say, I'll let you know.
Old age is a bitch.
It really is. You know what? Forget the question. I don't remember what it was. I had it. Darn it. That's annoying. Okay, well, I don't have anything else. What about you?
Yeah, I think we're good. That wraps up this week. Definitely check us out for next week when we'll have another special guest. And we will bring more pop culture news, more controversies related to pop culture, more music, more books, more comic books, etc. So please like and subscribe, leave comments, do all the different stuff that you can do in order to help us out. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe.